Shalom and welcome to this week's Living Torah. As the feasts are getting closer, I want to go through my schedule just a little bit for those of you that are anywhere close and you're looking for a place to go. So the evening of Yom Teruah, which is the beginning of that, let me check my calendar again real quick, is the 22nd of September. I will be at Gates to Zion in Columbia, South Carolina with Craig and Jen Odell and that congregation. Been there many times. Always an incredible time. Looking forward to that. From there, of course, is Yom Teruah or Yom Kippur. I'm going to be home and getting ready for the schedule to come. The first couple of days of Sukkot, actually I'll be here at Life Assembly with them the first day, and then heading to Guntersville, Alabama to be with Tony and Leslie Boyette, the Exodus Road Band guys, girls, and be there just for a couple of days, speaking mainly to the youth. Head from there to Bell Cow Lake in Chandler, Oklahoma with Monty Judah. And from there, a quick turnaround after I get back, and it's off to Israel. Our tour is we've got everything booked so far. Everything's looking good, and I'll be there for about 11 days with them, and then have a special something at the end, which I'm not going to talk about yet. But that will be. I'll actually be in Israel this year for 3 weeks. In other words, very, very busy schedule coming up, and appreciate your prayers of everything going favor along the way with it all. We will be taking additional funds to Israel, as has been for over 25 years now. This is something that we, of course, do we support Israel on a monthly basis. October 7th, I will be right between, I think I'm going to be in Alabama that last day, October 7th, during Sukkot. And I'm really, even now, kind of considering how that day is going to be. 2 years since October 7th of 2023. And I still, to this day, feel like life has kind of stood still. Right now with the IDF going back into Gaza City, going back in, trying to complete a work. And if you listening to Hanok and myself on the Israel Update, we go through as much of that as we can. But again, my prayer list had dwindled a little bit for IDF soldiers, and now is on the rise one more time. The world may be turning its back on Israel. The world may be turning its back on Judah, but Bezrat Hashem, there will be those standing for the land and for the people. And I, with his help, plan on being one of those folks. Let's see, anything, there was a couple things else I had in my mind. Maybe I'll get to that at the end. So I started thinking about October 7th, and that just kind of always takes me back to that day. Right now, 48 hostages still held in Israel. Most of those have died, who knows when. But the situation there continues to be serious, and to watch what is going on in the media. I just want to say briefly, here's where I was going to go briefly, other programs that I do besides Living Torah. Number one of them, and this is not in a priority order, but one of those is the Israel Update with Hanok. I believe that we bring in some things right now. This week, Hanok was suffering some terrible jet lag, just having come back from, I think, over 6 weeks in America. But we tried to give the things that are happening behind the scenes, not just what you would see on the media. Number two, second is a program with Barry Phillips, Foundations for Life. And that one next, I will key you in on, not this coming Wednesday, but the following week. Barry and I are going to be talking about the calendar issues. And should we be making a big deal of this? How should we deal with this? We're going to go into some deep stuff there, I think, probably drowning water. And the last one, but again, not in a priority order, is our program directed for younger people, but anybody can watch, called Life on Purpose. This past Monday night, I got a text from Alex, who is one of our co-hosts, and said he was not able to make it due to illness. So that put myself in now newly promoted from guest host to co-host, Jared Bain. Jared is a remarkable young man, and we've talked about atheism in just a couple of weeks he's been on. We've talked about atheism, agnosticism, and this week we went from no God to which God, and I did not know how educated this young man is in different religions. This past week, if you don't listen to anything else, I would urge you, challenge you to listen to this past week of Foundation or of Life on Purpose. It was, I believe, a remarkable show in that Jared brought out a number of things that I had no clue about, even regarding Islam, but other things that are happening. And we're going to continue on this theme for quite some time. Speaking of things, we're going to go to the Torah portion. When you go out. All right. So from Devarim chapter 21, verse 10 to 25, verse 19, there's a lot of these things. It's like, okay, I'm reading over it. What does this really have to do with me? And the first one is, when you go out to war against your enemies, and Yudhe Vav He Elohim hands them over to you, and you take prisoners, and you see among the prisoners a woman who looks good to you. I doubt that for the vast majority of our listeners that many people have had to deal with this commandment. So let's just pass on because there's nothing really for us. You know, that's the setup, right? So what is this? When you go out to war and you are given the blessing of being the victor in that war. So this is a time of blessing. Well, we're probably not going to be looking for another woman to bring home. I hope not. But what can this speak to us about? That times of blessing bring forth choices. You know, a time that you're lacking. Let's say that you've had some financial issues, health issues, whatever it may be. Your choices become kind of minimalized. It's not like, well, what are we going to do with this excess money that we have? What are we going to do with the excess time? It's like, well, can we pay this bill or can we pay this bill? And so a time of scarcity, we could call it that, our choices are minimalized. But in a time of blessing, we have more choices. So what are we going to do with whatever blessing that is? This is a time, as I've talked about in previous broadcasts, a time of blessing is a time that I see more people get in trouble during that time by making bad choices. Not seeking the Father, or even saying, well, it must be the Father's will here because He's blessing me. Well, not all blessings, I mean, blessings come from Him, yes. But sometimes those blessings can be from the enemy. Yeah, that can happen. In order to sidetrack us, to get our eyes off of Him. I mean, you look at the Torah portion right after He is blessing the Hebrews in the wilderness with Balak and Balaam and the donkey. What happens? Here's the Moabite women coming in. Guess what? The wheels fall off the bus. Now, was this the enemy that brought them in? Yes. But was it the Father that allowed that to happen? So they're thinking that, wow, this is a blessing at the end, when in fact it ended up becoming a curse because they did not handle it the right way. So in life, anytime we see blessings coming in our life, we should be very thankful for them, but we also should put our guard up of what is the purpose of these blessings. And guess what, folks? Most blessings that I've seen come into my life are not about me. They're about building His kingdom. Next, Verse 15 says, if a man has two wives, okay? If a man has two wives, I would say up front, he made some bad choices along the way. All right. Now, I remember back to 2010, May 10th of 2010, exactly. We had a tornado go over our house. And I got an email from someone right after that said, this is Yah judging you. And I'm like, okay, well, that thought has come across my mind, but could you at least tell me why you think that? And he sent me an email and said, yeah, he's judging you because at a conference that you were just at, you made fun of people that would be walking in polygamy. Okay, well, making fun may not have been the right thing, but I still disagree with it totally and completely. The word here is if you have. It is not condoning this thing. It is not condoning this practice. It is saying if you have done this, these are the consequences for it. Okay? Next one is verse 18. If a man has a stubborn, rebellious son, and you can read everything, it says you're to go out and stone him to death. Well, I don't really condone that in our day because why? It is illegal, all right? But is there something we can learn from this? Yes. Consider Eli and his two sons. Eli knows that they are involved in a promiscuous lifestyle. He knows what they're doing. He knows what they're doing is ungodly. But instead of doing something about it, he covers it up. He turns a blind eye. He doesn't do anything. He does not go forth, sit them down and say, listen, this is how it's going to be. And because of that, look at the consequences that not only happened to him, not only happened to his sons, but the consequences that happened to the whole house of Israel. See, when you and I'm not saying, I'm not pointing a finger here saying you or I am doing this, but theoretically, when you or I turn a blind eye to sin, maybe it's something in our house, maybe it's something that we have control over, maybe it's something that we could look at and say, and go to someone and say, listen, you need to make some changes here. Well, we do that, I don't know about you, but in that, this may be a time that you lose a friendship because they're not willing to accept, because they're turning a blind eye. But when you go to somebody and you say this, you may be, the consequences may not be favorable for you, but the consequences may be. They may be turning a blind eye. They have a blindness in their life. You call that out and they go, I didn't see that. Thank you very much. That would be the most incredible way of this thing turning out. I can tell you from experience, it normally doesn't happen that way. But the truth is that when someone is involved or covering up for a sin, it is going to affect everyone around them. So, this is a verse that's saying basically this: don't cover up what you see is wrong. Chapter 20, continuing in the same chapter, verse 22, if someone has committed a capital crime and is put to death, then hung on a tree, his body is to not remain all night on the tree, but you must bury him the same day, because a person who's been hanged has been cursed by God, so that you will not defile the land, and Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, your Elohim, is giving you to inherit. This is a messianic prophecy. Thousands of years before the idea of crucifixion came forth, and this is also in Psalms, in verses in Psalms, but thousands of years before crucifixion, this verse is here. So the disciples, what is Nicodemus thinking about? What is Joseph of Arimathea? What is he thinking about? What are the disciples? Well, the women, because most of the guys have left. What is John thinking about? They're thinking about this verse, that this man had been, though wrongly accused, wrongly condemned, he had been placed upon an execution stake, a capital crime of stating that he was a capital crime of that day in the political and religious time that they were living in, a capital crime of saying that he was Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh in the flesh. So why was he not allowed to hang upon that tree overnight? Why is it that before sundown, the word said he breathed his last and gave up his spirit in order to fulfill the Torah, in order to fulfill the words of Devarim chapter 21? He was he was placed in a burial tomb before sundown. So this brings us to something I mentioned. I've mentioned this a couple times in other programs and with Life Assembly. I'm going to come to a place of not arguing anymore regarding the churches, the Catholic Church, Catholicism, of the remnants of Catholicism, which is still in denominational Protestant churches, and in fact in some to a lesser extent in Messianic Hebrew roots congregations. The law is done away with. I'm tired of arguing about it, so I'm just going to go ahead and agree. Yes, I totally and completely agree. You can quote me on it this day of September 3rd of 2025, the 10th of Elul. The law is done away with. Yeah, it's the law of sin and death. It is not the instructions. It is not the instructions for life, but the law of sin and death. What did Yeshua take away upon that execution stake? He took away, the scripture is clear to me, the law of sin and death, the curse of death. Going on, chapter 22. If you are not to watch your brother's ox or sheep straying and behave as if it hadn't seen it. Again, this kind of goes back to verse 18. Don't turn a blind eye to something. All right? How many times have we seen in these crime-ridden cities in the United States a person on a subway or on the streets being beaten, being robbed, whatever it may be? I mean, this is today a common occurrence. What do people do? They get their phone out and start videotaping it in hopes that they would be able to sell that video to the first news agency that comes along, instead of stepping in and doing something. And then we have these crazy laws that are in effect today, that if you do something, there are states that have actually the Good Samaritan laws, because people were stopping to help someone that was in an accident and then being sued by the person that is laying there bleeding out. Someone does something to save their life, but it's not exactly right, and so they get sued and pretty much lose the rest of their life. So we live in a society that is based upon craziness. But the scripture tells us very clearly, if you see something happening, don't just turn a blind eye toward it. Now here's one for you. Verse 5. Verse 5. A woman is not to wear men's clothing, and a man is not to put on women's clothing, for whoever does these things is detestable to Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, your Elohim. Remember back to the previous generation, secretary of something that was convicted of stealing luggage. And I mean, this guy was an absolute nutcase. So is this talking about how it's amazing that the denominations years ago, these were early Pentecostal holiness denominations. Of course, the Torah is done away with, except for there's a few verses that we'd like to use for ourselves. All right, so and in that one was that, well, women should not wear pants. Okay, well, I don't really agree with that. Should men wear dresses? Well, there's a reason. There's numerous reasons why I'm never going to be a Catholic priest or a whatever these people are, an Anglican or whatever, because I just don't feel like I look good in a dress. Okay, so this verse, we can take this into wrongly interpret it. By the way, I mean, I just saw video footage of the earthquake in Afghanistan. Guess what? Those guys wear would have been more in line with what is here in the scripture than what we wear today. So, was this talking about pants? No, this is talking about men. You should look like men. Ladies, you should look like a lady. Pure and simple. And I think modesty goes along, kind of the next level of that thing. But rabbinically, it's been stated that from, I think it's like 100 feet or something, at dawn or at dusk, I can't remember the exact teaching on this, that you should be able to tell a man from a man and a woman from a woman. Well, I can tell you right here in Franklin, North Carolina, I can go to Walmart. I don't like to, but I can go to Walmart, and there's people there that I've been seeing for over a year, and I still don't know. This is the confusion of our day. And that confusion is based upon a person's confusion. People are confused about who they are, which you cannot become who you're supposed to be if you're confused about who you are. So we need to be, men, be men. Ladies, be ladies. And by the way, be proud of it. Not only accept it, but embrace it. Because the Father created you to be who you are for a purpose of being who you are. Okay, that may sound a little bit like double talk, but it's the truth. You're created for a specific purpose on this earth that nobody else can bring forth. And so if you're confused about who you are, how can you possibly bring that forth? So there should be no confusion. Verse 6 is known as the least commandment in the Torah. Out of the 613, if you're walking along, you happen to see a bird's nest in a tree on the ground with chicks or eggs, and the mother bird is sitting on the chicks or on the eggs, you're not to take the mother with the chicks. You must let the mother go, but you can take the chicks for yourself so that things will go well with you and you will prolong your life. How is it possible that you're walking along a path, and you look over and see a mother bird that's sitting there on a nest, and you notice that there's newborn chicks or there's eggs there? How is killing or not killing the mother, how is that got anything to do with anything? Well, it actually has everything to do with everything, because this is about honoring life. So if you were to kill the mother, those eggs are going to die. If you kill the mother, those chicks will probably die because they cannot survive in this world by themselves. So what are you doing? You're honoring generations to come. Well, I can take the chicks. I can take the eggs. That's right. But the mother can lay more eggs and have more chicks. So we are honoring ongoing life. This is one of the ideas, going back to this confusion thing, one of the things that's happening in our world today, it is against the first commandment. What is the first commandment? Be fruitful and multiply. Well, there are lifestyles today that you really don't have to be concerned about them lasting more than another generation, because they cannot procreate. So that generation is going to go away. They're being fruitful in a different way, which means it's going to continue on. I got that one. But this idea of gender neutrality and all these things, what does it affect? It affects the first commandment of being fruitful and multiply. Verse 8, when you build a new house, you must put a low wall around your roof. Otherwise, someone may fall from it, and you will be responsible for his death. Very simple. Be responsible. All right? Be responsible for what is within your control, within your boundaries. If you have a yard and there's a hole out there, well, fill the hole in. If you don't have time to fill the hole in, put a stake around, do something to warn someone so they don't fall, they don't trip, they don't break their ankle or something. We need to, each of us, be responsible for what is within our control. See, these commandments, though the vast majority of people will just kind of read over them as like, well, that, that doesn't affect me, that doesn't affect me, that doesn't affect me. But these things, every commandment, I would go out on a limb here and say that there's not a single commandment that today cannot be followed in some way. It may be different from how it is there, but there is a way to follow it. Now, with that, we're going to be a different people, which is verse 12. You're to make for yourself twisted cords on the four corners of the garment you wrap around yourself. And this is the commandment, going back to the book of Numbers, Bamidbar, of the tzitzit. That you're to put these threads, these twisted cords on the corners of our garment. I mean, how is that? How is that commandment evolved through the years? Right or wrong? Whether people agree with the commandment or not, originally it was not a prayer shawl. It was not an ornate garment like it is today that has four corners and the four tzitzit. It wasn't like that. How did they tie those? I don't know. And I've never really met anybody that doesn't. They may have an opinion, say, well, this is the way it's been done because this is the way it's always been done. But how do we explain the difference in tying them with Sephardic and Ashkenazi? How do we explain those things? Okay, there's no statement here in the Torah of how to do this. This is in other writings. But does that mean that we toss the commandment out? Absolutely not. No. So for me, this commandment has gone from buying a prayer shawl that had white threads on the edges, untying them, going to Walmart, buying blue thread and retying them with blue thread, because in Numbers it says to put blue threads on the corners of your garment. This went from when I bought the what I believe to be the biblical techelet thread, the blue that is comes from the snail. I did that. Today, I'm not going to wear a talit on a daily basis. The talit katan, the undershirt, I find is very uncomfortable. I'm not going to wear that on a daily basis. So I went a number of years ago to wearing the tzitzit on my belt loops. I've had people that have wanted to argue about, well, that's not biblical. Show me how it's not biblical. No, it may not be. It may not be according to your tradition, but the essence of the commandment. See, what are we going for in our observance of the commandments? What are we trying to go for? What is our goal? Our goal should be the essence of the commandment. The essence of this commandment is what? That you're to be a little different. That you're to be set apart. That you are to have a different lifestyle, a different worldview than others. And that is to be something that others see in you also. So that's the essence of this, in my opinion. Same chapter 22, verses 13 through 29. I'm not going to go into all of those. You can read those over if you'd like. But what does it come down to? It is very, very easy. These commandments, though probably most of us have looked at those and said, I'd never been a part of those things, but maybe somebody has, but I would rather go through life and not. But what's the commandments telling us? What are these words telling us? What is the essence? Set your boundaries for yourself, and then respect the boundaries of others. So a man who comes upon an engaged girl in the countryside doesn't violate her. Why? Because he's set boundaries for himself, and also she's engaged, so there's a boundary around her that has been chosen by her and the person she's engaged to, so you're going to respect that person's boundaries also. I mean, this could be as simple as something I talked about. I've talked about. There's been a long time ago. Let's say that your neighbor puts in a new swimming pool. Okay, you're looking over the fence, going, "Wow, that's really nice, beautiful swimming pool. I mean, that must have cost them a lot of money. I'm going to wait for them to leave, and then I'm going to go jump in it." What are you doing? You're not respecting someone's boundaries. Now, if a neighbor comes over and says, "Hey, I just put in a new swimming pool. Like to invite you and your family to come over." That's fine. You go over, you enjoy the swimming pool, you get out, you dry off, you go home. That does not mean that when you see them leaving that you're still invited into the swimming pool. Unless the neighbor says, "Oh, anytime you'd like to come over, the gate's right there between the two properties. Anytime, just enjoy the swimming pool." Okay? Set boundaries and then respect other people's boundaries. Of course, a favorite verse is in chapter 23, verse 14. You must include a trowel in your equipment when you relieve yourself. I used this when I was teaching some my Torah is Life series many years ago. That in your bug out bag, in your preparedness items, put a small shovel. Why? So you can clean up after yourself. All right. There's city ordinances about this. Why should someone have to have a city ordinance about when you're walking your dog, that if your dog goes, you clean up after the dog? That ordinance is based upon this verse. It doesn't say, when you're walking your dog, but I think it would mean the same thing, that we're to clean up after ourselves. Litter today, all over the place. Why? Because people refuse to do, somebody threw a wrapper down. Well, it's not my responsibility. No, it may not be your responsibility. Well, why not take responsibility? So somebody else is a slob. Okay, take responsibility. Maybe you look at the person and say, why didn't you do this? That might be a good way to get in a fight. I don't know in these days. But let's take it to ourselves. Clean up after ourselves. And what about not just a physical, relieving. What about the spiritual things that we've done in our lives? Are we willing to go to other people and clean up the messes that we have made? Think about it. He says, and here's the most intriguing part for me is, for Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, your Elohim, moves about in your camp to rescue you and to hand you over to your enemies. Now you can take this in a physical sense, but it's see, again, the essence of the verse, of the commandment, is to look at the spiritual side of it, because the natural teaches us about the spiritual teaches us about the natural. So we're going to Sukkot. I want to use this verse. I'm teaching a little bit on preparedness while I'm there, supposed to. And so what is this verse telling us? That we should respect others' boundaries. We should set boundaries. And we shouldn't cause a mess. So I may go to a Sukkot that, they have some differences of opinion than what I do. Okay, that's fine. Does that mean that I don't go there? Not necessarily. But does that mean that I go and cause a mess? If back in the days of the blood moons and all that stuff. Not speaking against those that were teaching on it. But, here's one. Flat Earth. I've seen people, and I've actually had people that have argued silly about this thing. I mean, to the point of breaking fellowship with someone over the shape of the earth. Who cares? Okay, who really, in the end, what is the difference? Now, I don't believe in the flat earth, just in case someone was wondering. I doubt if anybody was. I don't believe in it. But I also, as an old friend of mine said, I'm not concerned about the shape of the earth, but the condition of the world. And so, let's say that the earth is flat, okay? Just because I can for a moment. How is that going to affect the rest of your day? Does that mean that you're going to walk different? Does it mean you're going to talk different? Does that mean that gravity is going to affect you any different than it does right now? Or is that going to affect what you have for lunch? What you have for dinner? Does it affect anything at all? No. So if it doesn't affect the way that I walk out my daily life, why should I bring that to a place of controversy in order to cause disruption in the camp, in order to cause division in the camp? That doesn't make any sense to me at all. So bring a trowel. If you're going to a Sukkot somewhere and you've been I doubt any of you have ever, I've never caused any kind of problem. Yeah, right. Just by being there, folks, we're humans. By being there, we're going to cause some issues along the way. Make sure you pack a trowel this year so when you get to Sukkot, you can go around and say to people, listen, we had a little bit of a mess a couple of years ago. I'd like to clean that up before we move on. Verse 20, you're not to charge interest to a person of Israel. Now it says you can charge interest to other people. Essence of the verse. Treat the family different. Now this takes us to a different level. Who is your family? Are we talking about the genetics, our DNA? Are we talking about our natural? Who's our mom, dad, our family? Well, I mean, it's obvious that most of us do treat our family a little different. That's not always, from my experience, that's not always good, actually. But, this adage of blood is thicker than water, it should be. We should treat our natural family a little different with more respect than we do anybody else around us. But if that's true in the natural, how much more is that true in the spiritual? What about our family, Israel? What about our family, the Jews in Israel? Well, they don't believe like I do. Okay, does that keep you from having fellowship with your natural brother, sister, mom, dad, because they don't believe like you? Well, I mean, from what I've seen in my experience over these last years, yes, it does. Because grandma doesn't believe like I do, I'm not going to talk to grandma anymore. Well, guess what? That means you have an issue. And the issue is not grandma. It's a relationship issue that you have in your family. It needs to be fixed. Okay? So, though I may be going to Israel for 3 weeks, Bezrat Hashem, I'm going to be talking with, staying with, riding around with people that they see the scripture different than I do. They believe different than I do. Am I going to break relationship because of that? No. And am I going to mistreat that relationship by trying to make them like me? No. Am I going to pray that the Father will change both of us? Maybe so. Because I can guarantee you that there's a few things about my own life that, might need a little bit of work. So it's this verse that Hanok and I use in Jeremiah that says, I will bring you back to the land, and as I'm doing it, I will discipline you. Are we trying to change the family, or are we praying that the Father would change the family? And when we're praying that, it may be that we open ourselves to that correction first, because that's where it's needed, all right? So, treat them different. Chapter 24, verse 16. Fathers are not to be executed for the children, nor are children to be executed for the fathers. Every person will be executed for his own sin, okay? This has been an issue in talking sometimes regarding the work of Yeshua. Well, going back to Adam's sin. Well, I cannot be blamed for what Adam did. Actually, that's true. Okay? So let's quit blaming Adam for our sin. How's that? It says that a person will be executed for his own sin. So if all we're doing is saying, well, the reason that I am who I am is because of Adam. No, the reason a person is who they are is because of themselves. You look at a baby. A baby is cute. It's innocent. And then it grows up. And you're like, wow, where did that come from? Well, it has the nature of Adam. Yeah, that's true. But what if we strip the nature of Adam out? Okay? I mean, there's different conversations of how long it took Adam and Eve to fall. Some say a day. Some say 7 years. I don't know. My question is, would I have made it that long? We're all capable. It's not because of somebody else that we sin. We're all capable of it on our own and by ourselves. Okay? Chapter 25, verse 4. This is one that, you're not to muzzle an ox when it's treading on the grain. What does an ox do? An ox treads on the grain in order that you may have bread. Whole discussion, Barry got into a little bit this week on Foundations for Life. The whole discussion on, I would be giving, but you're not a Levite. I don't think I have Levitical blood in me, My adopted grandfather is from Levy County in Florida, and he was Jewish, though he never knew it. So I don't know, but that doesn't matter. Okay, I'm not looking for a pedigree here, and this is not a commercial specifically for Join to Hashem, but. And I mean, I'm talking to the people that do the most probably right now. The people that join, that support this ministry, you guys are overwhelming in the way you do that. But there's so many people that don't support anything. Watching, endless videos on YouTube, going to service week after week after week, and do nothing to support that. I had a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and a youth, and I said, somehow we need to instill in our young people the giving to the kingdom, the being a part of the kingdom, of having ownership in the kingdom to come. And when a person gives today, what are they doing? The same as was done in ancient Israel. When you brought your offering to the tabernacle, you brought your offering to the temple, what were you doing? You were helping to establish the revelation of the kingdom that was coming to this earth. So what happens when you support ministries that are actually doing that? That's another subject I won't get into. What are you doing? You are helping to bring forth that revelation of the kingdom upon this earth until the kingdom comes to this earth. Lastly, chapter 25, verse 18. And this is about Amalek. How he met you by the road, attacked those in the rear, those who were exhausted and straggling behind when you were tired and weary. I have this one underlined in my scripture. This is a very important verse to me. To never leave those who are straggling behind, if at all possible. To those that are exhausted, to those that are straggling behind, we need to not just turn around and go, well, whatever. Years ago, Kathy and I did a hike in Alaska, and we invited a person with us. We did not know anything about them, and come to find out they had never backpacked before, and they were straggling the whole way. 38.6 miles. By the first day, we were like, whoops, this is a problem. They had a backpack. By the end of the first day, I was carrying over half of their backpack. By the second day, I was carrying pretty much everything except their backpack. I was carrying everything in it. Between me and Kathy, we divided some of it up. But what was the option? Leave them behind? No, that's not an option. But the other aspect is this: don't be the person. Don't be the person because of your own irresponsibility to always be the one straggling, the one that is behind, that's struggling. Do whatever it takes, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Do what you can do so that you're not that person. Because I can tell you that person that's always straggling, that's always exhausted, that's always tired because of their own lack of disciplines in their lives, that person will eventually slow down the whole camp. Don't be that person. Okay. With that, read through the Torah portion. Figure out what's the essence. Look at this verse. What's the essence of it today? Let us never use an excuse of, oh, that doesn't affect me. It always affects us. Shabbat Shalom. Shavua Tov. Have a blessed, prosperous week. Bezrat Hashem, God willing. See you again next week. And until then, be strong.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha Shalom.